What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. I am your host, Pee Wee the Plug, 1/4 through the wire, number one Knicks fan in the world, aka Mr. Know It All. And man, this episode is relieving. You know what I mean? All of you guys know, whether it's from Twitter, whether it's from the Through the Wire podcast, that I'm a big Paul George fan. Paul George is my favorite player in the league. He's been my favorite player for a long time now. I loved Paul George when he was with Indiana. That's when he grew into my favorite player. I liked him coming out of Fresno State, but when he came into the league, he was like a long shooting guard, defensive specialist that I always was like, he got good game. And then, he transcended and improved and made jumps up into, being a clear-cut number two with Danny Granger. And then, as everybody knows, he, sprung onto the scene and really took over control of the Pacers. And, I just always loved this game. It's real smooth, two-way player, shoot the ball real cool, can dunk on you before, still he can dunk on people here and there, but specifically before the leg injury. And he's just always been a guy whose game I admire. Like, if I had anybody's game that I could take, I felt like he always had one of the more skillful games, you know what I'm saying? So I've always been a Paul George fan. And, over the last few seasons or not, with NBA Twitter, Paul George has gotten a lot of heat for whatever reason. Some rightfully so. For me, I think it's been a little blown out of proportion. I think criticism is okay, and I have no problem with anybody getting criticized, no matter if they're my favorite player or not. I've seen Michael Jordan get criticized. I've seen LeBron James get criticized. I've seen Kobe. I've seen the best of the best get criticized. So why on earth would I think my favorite player is exempt from it? I just think that everything can be blown out of proportion with Paul George, though. And I say all of that to basically say it's totally refreshing to see him pull this team into, the Western Conference Finals for the first time ever without Kawhi. And granted, yes, Paul George did have help. I think that's important to say that he didn't by any means single-handedly lift them here. But I don't think there's a team that's in the conference finals or that potentially will be in the conference finals as being carried by anybody. I think this is where teams are coming together and playing as teams. We saw the Milwaukee Bucks win last night, and they have advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals now. They're going to be waiting on their opponent, Philadelphia or Atlanta, who are going to be dealing with their Game 7 shenanigans today and tonight. So I can't wait to see how that unfolds and to see who the Bucks will be playing. But I think the Bucks, they played a great game yesterday as a team. Giannis had a 40-point game, and he played real well. He was super efficient. He settled a little bit, but he still managed a way to have his imprint on the game. I think Jrue Holiday had certain stretches in that fourth quarter before went into overtime where he hit a couple big shots. He hit the big three, and then he hit the baseline mid-range shot that was basically like a little, not 5-0 run, but he was kind of trading baskets back and forth with Kevin Durant. And then in that overtime, Chris Middleton, played like a first option. And I think in certain points of the games, he is their first option because he has a skill set of being a three-level scorer, capable of getting his own shot better than anybody else on the team. And he delivered. He had some big shots for them. And as a team, they collectively won that game. Brook Lopez had an incredible block in overtime. PJ Tucker, before he fouled out, played an incredible defense on Kevin Durant. And it's the same thing for the Clippers. I think the Clippers pushing on to the Western Conference Finals and finishing off the last two games without Kawhi was a testament to them as a team. Obviously in that Game 6 in LA, Terrence Mann was phenomenal. But there was even stretches where Reggie Jackson made big timely shots. Patrick Beverley hit some big time 3-point shots over Rudy. Marcus Morris had stretches in that first half where he was hitting and making tough shots at the end of shot clock situations. Luke Kennard came alive, in certain stretches earlier in that series. And then, Paul George. Paul George was their leader and, their best player. And I felt like there were certain times when a game did, simmer down and they needed buckets. And he was able to get them some answers to stop the bleeding because Utah was going to come. And then his 37-point performance in Game 5 was exactly what they needed, but still playing within the team and offense and trusting his teammates and always being willing to make those passes. So I say all of that to just basically say that as a Paul George fan, it's incredible to see him be able to answer that call because a lot of people was extremely ready to see him fail as the guy with Kawhi Leonard being sidelined with his hurt. And I'm expecting them to break the news soon. Maybe they won't, but I truly think Kawhi Leonard is out for the rest of the year. I think he's probably going to have to get surgery. Probably won't be there at the beginning of next season, to be honest with you. I know this is like a contract year because he has the player option that he can opt out and test free agency. So I don't know if it's his team that wants to just keep everything quiet. I don't know if it's the Clippers wanting to have, some optimism, but I heard from Brian Windhurst that surgery could be needed, and it doesn't come to my surprise because we all know it's an ACL thing, and they're trying to take it game by game. Like, oh, Kawhi is ruled out for game one instead of just announcing that he's done. So, it's good to see Paul George, fill in and make things happen. Like I said, no, Paul George didn't have a 60-point performance in both games to backpack them. But I think as a leader and as their best player, he did a very good job of playing within the team, encouraging his teammates. If you watch the game, you see he was one of the first people always there at Terrence Mann when he was making those shots. When Terrence Mann was hesitating after making 3 or 4 threes, Paul George was one of the first people to let him know, shoot those shots. And even in Paul George's post-game, interview, one of the reporters for the Clippers asked him, like, yo, you've been one of Terrence Mann's biggest fans all year. Earlier this year, Paul George said he was Terrence Mann's #1 fan. And you see the belief now, and when it mattered, the belief showed itself. And last but not least, I think Tyronn Lue also, for him to make the certain adjustments that he made now for the second series in a row after falling 0-2, and Twitter and everybody having something to say about his coaching resume and, how much they respect him as a coach. He showed that he can make the adjustments to win a series. And I think the adjustments that he made really kind of made Rudy Gobert not as impactful as he normally can be. And I think that's a big deal because Rudy Gobert is one of the best defenders that we've seen in a long time. So for you to kind of X him out and what he does, so special, I think is important. Moving on to the Milwaukee Bucks and the Brooklyn Nets. I know I touched on them, not too long ago. It was an incredible series, man. I see so many people reacting to so many things, and I'm a Knicks fan, so I see all my Knicks fans trying to shit on the Brooklyn Nets or whatever. But I really enjoyed that series. I'm so happy it went to 7 games. To have 2 Eastern Conference Finals series go 7 games was really refreshing, because the Suns obviously swept the Nuggets. They had their injuries or whatnot, and the Suns, credit to them. They came out and played well, and they didn't waste any games, and they were able to chill and get comfortable in the Western Conference Finals. You got the Jazz and the Clippers, who went 6, and it was an exciting 6, especially when, the Jazz came out firing in the first 2 games and went up 2-0, and then for the Clippers to be in a 2-0, pit again, and that, that hole again, for them to climb back out of it and win 4 straight, was nice and exciting, especially when Kawhi went down. But nothing is going to ever be better than Game 7 in the semifinals or just throughout the playoffs. And for us to have 2 on the Eastern Conference side is really exciting. But I feel like Brooklyn shouldn't hold their head. Obviously, James Harden wasn't as healthy as he can be, and injuries are a part of the game, so it's not an excuse. But still, they were missing him for a lot of it, and he obviously wasn't 100%. Kyrie Irving obviously missed the last couple of games, and that is a big impact on them. But I think for Kevin Durant, it was a special moment. This is a guy who, the last time we saw him playing basketball was in the finals, and he was trying to play on one leg basically, and the Achilles injury at his age was concerning for us and NBA fans, and especially probably for himself. You know what I mean? It was no doubt in my mind that he was going to come back, but you do know how significant that injury is, and to see him play at this level on this stage was great to see, man. And it makes you appreciate Kevin Durant. I know everybody wanted to make it a LeBron James versus Kevin Durant thing. If LeBron James would have did this, if LeBron James would have did that, if this was that. I just want to take the time out, appreciate the series that we just had as basketball fans, but also put context and put things into perspective to realize this is a guy that we haven't seen in like 2 years. You know what I mean? Like, this is a guy that we seriously haven't seen play at a high level in a very long time, who had an extremely gruesome injury that a lot of guys don't come back the same. I know technology and we're getting advanced in ways that Achilles injuries aren't what they used to be, but it's still a significant injury that certain guys, no matter how much forward, technology and advance we get, it's still something that it bothers guys, and it's tough to come back from depending on who you are. And I know he's not an explosive athlete or anything like that, but still, whenever you have a significant injury like an Achilles, like an ACL, things like that, it's always going to be tough. No matter how many guys have come back and shown promise or whatnot, it's still a scary situation. And when you have one of the all-time greats from your generation, who you've kind of, take for granted. I think we take for granted that especially people my age, we've kind of seen the entire careers of LeBron and Durant's and Dwayne Wade's and Melo's, and we've taken certain careers for granted because we've just grown so accustomed of always seeing these guys. But I think after the retirements of certain guys like Kobe, RIP, and Vince Carter and Allen Iverson and that generation of players, it started to really hit home. Dirk, guys that I grew up watching for years, and now all of a sudden they're kind of out of the game, and it was just a crazy thing. And it hit me during those times when Tim Duncan, Garnett, Paul Pierce, all these guys are retiring. It's like, damn, these guys really don't play forever. They don't, and it makes you not want to take things for granted. I always go back and watch certain games and certain moments and think like, man, as a kid, I really didn't fully appreciate it. There were certain playoff games and certain moments that I watched, but I don't think I really took in. And, for Kevin Durant to experience that injury and for us to miss him for the amount of time that we did, it was really great to see him on this stage and be put in a situation that we're not accustomed to seeing Kevin Durant in. You know what I mean? We're not accustomed to seeing Kevin Durant have to be in a situation where he is, kind of out there by himself. The last time I can say that I've seen him in this type of role was with OKC when they played against James Harden, coincidentally, and the Rockets. I think it was the first round. This is when Patrick Beverley ran into Russell Westbrook, and he got hurt, and he was out for the rest of the series, and Reggie Jackson then had to be inserted into the lineup, and Kevin Durant kind of played a point forward type thing, and the Oklahoma City Thunder ultimately won that series, but they lost. They lost a little bit after that, and that was a year that they were like the best team, and that was the year that they were supposed to come back and win the championship, but Russell Westbrook got hurt, and it kind of threw a wrench into their plans or whatnot. But to see Kevin Durant in this type of situation, I know they built a monsters team, this crazy powerful team, but like I said, no Kyrie. James Harden playing kind of on one leg with the hamstring situation, that limits him. And it puts Kevin Durant in a situation where, he has to do a lot of the other things where we haven't really seen him be in that role for a lot of his career. He's just been fortunate enough to be drafted to the Thunder, who had then got Russell, got Harden, and, got Ibaka. For a little bit they had Jeff Green, and they always had good teams around him. And then he left there and went to the Warriors, which I know, people harp on. I'm not going to go that route. But even with the Warriors, it was like, there's Steph, there's Clay, there's Dre. You know what I mean? We've never seen him be in a certain situation where we've kind of seen LeBron in. Not to make this a LeBron KD thing, but LeBron was in that situation where post Kyrie, and it was like him, and I know they got swept in the finals against the Warriors, but it was like him, J.R. Smith, George Hill, just random guys, Tristan Thompson, Kevin Love, Jordan Clarkson was on that team, Jeff Green, just him and a bunch of random people, and he wheels them through the Eastern Conference. He carries them to the finals. He has a 51-point game, and then the whole J.R. Smith debacle unfolds, and they lose game one, and they ultimately get swept against this juggernaut team. But it was still exciting to see LeBron James carry that team. And here we are in the same situation where Kevin Durant had to have that 40-point triple-double, and go crazy and play literally every minute of the game. It was exciting to see, and I think it really helped his legacy because a lot of people really, really only see Kevin Durant as a guy that's been supported by so many people. And, as a guy that likes Kevin Durant, I don't kill him because of that. I'm not down on him because of that. But yes, me as a selfish basketball fan for a split second would love to see Kevin Durant on a team that isn't with a couple of all-stars. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm wrong for wanting or wishing that I could see that. I've accepted the fact that at this point I probably won't see it for a full-length season because he's with the Nets. And for the most part, they're going to be, all-star level. And I think this is the direction the NBA is going, where you're going to have a few multiple All-Stars. But even in this situation, we've never seen Kevin Durant really in a like even Giannis situation. Like Giannis have Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, but they're like lower tier All-Stars. Those are two players that have never cracked the top 10. Kevin Durant has played with MVPs at his league. Steph Curry is the MVP a couple times. Harden MVP. Russell has won MVP. So I would have loved to see Kevin Durant, that glimpse of that 40-point triple-double playing every minute. I would have loved to see him have to do that throughout the course of a season as a selfish NBA fan. I'm not saying he needs to do it, but I would have loved to see him do it. And not to that extent. I'm not saying he would average a triple-double and play every minute of every game, obviously. But, it was something different. But I do think it allowed me to appreciate Kevin Durant. And I hope a lot of other people, do as well. Because this is a guy that, not that long ago had one of the toughest injuries that you can get in basketball. You know what I'm saying? So that was real special to see. Tonight we have Philadelphia against Atlanta. Another Game 7. I think this is another legacy game. I think these Game 7s are so important and so special to me because that's exactly what they are. They're like legacy builders or legacy blocks that you can cement into your legacy. Like, for instance, hypothetically speaking, if Trae Young comes out tonight and has a 37 or 40-point game and they win and he makes some big plays, that's in his legacy forever. That Trae Young in his third year, catapulted his Atlanta Hawk team that was solid but didn't have these aspirations or expectations, and he took them to this place that nobody saw coming, and they beat the number 1 seed Philadelphia, who a lot of people had in the finals, including myself. That would be a big legacy thing. If Joel Embiid comes out tonight and is dominant and nobody can stop him, and he says, I'm not letting my team win. Like, lose. This is our year. This is our window. This is perfect time. And the Nets are out. We don't have to worry about them. LeBron and the Lakers are out. Chris Paul is out for the Suns, and they're inexperienced. Even if the Clippers beat them, they don't have Kawhi. If we're the Philadelphia 76ers, we're the number 1 seed. We're the best team. This is our window right here. We have to take advantage and seize this moment. And that would be nice to see him do. Or Ben Simmons, who struggled from the free throw line and throughout this series, all series, if he decides to step up and say, you know what, I'm going to wash away all my bad games and mentally take myself to a place to understand that everything is now. The past 6 games don't matter. It's here. And he does something crazy. That's the point of his legacy. So I love these Game 7s. And I think it's going to be interesting because if Philly wins, you have two teams, in that Eastern Conference Finals who have a window of taking advantage right now, and they probably feel that they could beat either one of those Western Conference teams. Like I said, the Suns, as good as they were, I don't think anybody projected them to get here as easily as they did. Like, they handled business against the Lakers, which a lot of people projected them to lose. They sweep the Nuggets, which was the same team that took care of Dame and CJ without Jamal Murray. And the Suns sweep them. You know what I'm saying? And the same thing with the Clippers. I think people, if I'm an Eastern Conference team and you look at the Clippers, it's like they're playing good. They did good against the Jazz and they had guys step up. But the matter of the fact is they are down Kawhi Leonard. And as long as you're down a starter or anybody that's as significant as Kawhi Leonard, then you're not the same team. And people are probably going to be confident going against you. Just like the Suns, who they're going to match up today as well, the Suns and Clippers. Right now they're both down a man, Chris Paul and Kawhi, but at a certain point they're going to get Chris Paul back in the series, and it's going to make them feel confident and superior because they know that the Clippers are down Kawhi. Now, they're not going to take the Clippers lightly, but you much rather face a Clipper team that doesn't have Kawhi versus them with Kawhi, obviously. And I think that's going to be an interesting series, especially depending on how many games Chris Paul doesn't play. Because it's kind of even now, right? Without Kawhi, without Chris Paul, it's kind of Paul George versus Devin Booker, and then their others have to step up. And it's going to be interesting to see the chess match that Monty and Ty Lue play against each other in that situation. So it's going to be real nice. And I think we're going to have 3 black coaches in the conference finals. We have Monty versus Tyronn Lue. No matter what happens between the Sixers and the Hawks, that's coached by 2 black coaches themselves, and one of them are going to advance. And then you have Bud, Coach Budenholzer for the Milwaukee Bucks. So we'll have some black coaches in the finals. Which it's not to make it about make it anything about race or anything, but for basketball to have been a place where we haven't seen black coaches, and we know that story and the situation of how black coaching can be, and there's less opportunities in a lot of sports. It's good to see black coaches get to the championship and make statements of say that they belong. You know what I mean? For a long time, black coaches were a rarity, still are a rarity to a certain extent. And then even James Jones being a black executive and catapulting the Suns, who had a horrific, past decade, for him to put these pieces together as a black executive for the first time, that's good too. And even Daryl Morey, who isn't black, but for him to be an analytic dude, that's something that's still kind of new and different. For him to be in this situation in his first year with the 76ers is nice to see, and he's making a case for the analytic guys because they're coming up and being ushered in. So I think we're gonna have we're gonna have some nice ending to the season, and then at the last of it, we get a new finals completely. You know what I'm saying? So we get black coaching in the finals, and in the conference finals, we get analytic guys like Daryl Morey, and then we ultimately get a new champion from a team that we haven't seen in the past decade, or in some cases ever. But when's the last time we seen the Hawks be in the finals? Suns be in the finals? The Sixers be in the finals? The Sixers in the finals was like 2001? 20 years ago. The Clippers have never even been to the Western Conference Finals. So we're going to have something new, something different. I'm excited. I'll be back next week to give an update on what the series are like in each conference finals. And yeah, that's my main message, man. Do not take any of this stuff for granted. Appreciate all of these guys while they're here, because they're all a one injury away or some situation away to where we don't see them anymore. Then next 5 years, you're going to look back and be like, man, I really like this game. I'm upset that I didn't appreciate it while I was there. But I do think we're heading into a nice closing of this year's season, which was different, weird, not usual, but we made it. We got through it. We got through the bubble in the pandemic last year, and now here we are, a series away from having a crazy, unpredictable finals. And I'm here to enjoy it, so I hope y'all are too. As always, I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug, and I will see you next time. I'm out.